Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at some Ramped Dragon. So Ramped Dragon, classic, you know, can't go wrong. You basically play the ramp cards Dragon Scion and the other ramp follower Liu Feng, and then you play all the big stuff. You drop everything big, all your removal, make hard threats that can't be dealt with while trying to chip in some damage, or going for the Ruler of Cocytus to your Apocalypse deck. Apocalypse deck has a lot of cards in it. Honestly, way too many to go through individually, but they are all classic cards if you're familiar with Shadowverse, and I'll show them there. But really solid card if you can pull it off. Not super easy to do a lot of the time. Most of the time you're just focusing on big followers like Twilight Dragon to wipe the board and draw your cards, Genesis Dragon for big storm damage, Warrior of the Deep for leader damage, and Garu for board swarm. It actually does a really nice job of that. You also have some control in Burnite, which honestly you could probably bump up to 3 if you have it. I probably would. I would mess around with using maybe less Calamity's Breath or dropping some Warriors of the Deep for more Burnite, but that is about the only change I would make in that front. The rest of the deck is basically just removal and draw engine cards. So you have removal in your 2-drops in Evo, removal on board wipe stuff, you have draw cards that restore some health, you have more draw cards, you have more removal, and that's basically all of your early game. Because you want to get to these big hard hitters. This deck is relatively expensive, especially if you go all in on Burnites as well as the rest of the cards in this deck. Definitely not a deck that's free-to-play friendly, that's for sure, not unless you get insanely lucky, which honestly I did pretty alright. Not free-to-play, put it that way, I've spent a bit, but I got pretty lucky in about 150 packs to get, you know, 2 Forte and Olivia, 2 Garu, a Ruler of Cocytus, and a Burnite, which is pretty good, so that's not a bad structure for that many. So we're going to get right into it and take a look. Alright, kicking us off early here is Swordcraft. We'll see how we go with this one. This replay should be pretty decent for memory. I did stream all these matches for anyone who was interested. We end up dumping all high-end cards. We're just looking for ramp and low-end cards ideally. Getting extra bits of removal doesn't always hurt either, but honestly, you really just want those low-end cards. We do end up finding ramp immediately, which is great. Doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's pretty peak. Being able to go second and then go play point for turn 2 to get our ramp basically gives us the free ramp early. We even got pretty lucky that we also got a second Dragon Sign, so we can easily play that along with Strike of Dragon if we wanted, but I decided not to because it's only going to summon a 1/1 anyway. It's not really going to have that much impact there. Now, they do get to go pretty wide here, which is a little detrimental to me, honestly. It's not what you want to see. So I go for Strike a Dragon here. I try and limit their board a little bit by removing a card, and we get really lucky, because that's a random hit to kill something, and we did manage to hit the 2/2. Fortunately, they do go for Iron Crown Ward here, which is pretty detrimental to us, given that we don't have more removal yet. And honestly, we don't end up finding more, which is a bit disappointing. I can't really do a lot else here other than go for Lionheart. Fortunately, since we were in overflow, having more than 7 play points, we did get the free Evo on our 5/5s there, which also ramps us more because it still activates its Evo effect even under the free Evo. So that does limit the damage we are going to be taking here. But our opponent again going super wide, becoming very difficult to deal with. It's not something I like to have to deal with when they go really, really wide on me. Luckily, we do draw Twilight Dragon, dead perfectly on curve, which does allow us to completely eliminate the board and set up a 12-12, sorry, don't say 13. And that thing can pretty much close out our game here. Because it is very hard to remove that for a Swordcraft player unless they get lucky, which, I mean, that Bane does a good job. But they're now going to be facing down a repeat of that, where we just play big followers, we play big things, we do a lot of things, and they just kind of have to deal with it. This time, though, I decided to just go for a little Evo, so I could take it out, along with obviously going for the draw, looking for those big followers. Now, we do have a Garu play here. Garu is our go wide follower. Very useful, especially when he has a barrier unit and a normal one as well with ward. Plus the super evolve does give the ward storm, so we do actually get 9 damage on that board while setting up 2 wards. They do decide to go for the Albert here, so this is actually a massive missed lethal for them, I feel like. If they had have went for the super evolve on that Albert, they could have hit me in the face for 6, but do end up missing it, unfortunately for them. It just goes to show, sometimes you just miss it. And in that case, they did. But we were mostly using the previous replay as a way to show off the ramp mechanic, which is extremely solid and probably the best ramp I had out of all these games. Up against next is Portal. Portal, a very popular deck right now as well. No surprise, it is quite strong. I've been climbing with it most of the morning on day 2. And it is a very good deck. This Ramp Dragon also very good. I'm definitely positive on this Ramp Dragon deck. I've only played probably about 10 games, and I think I've won 6 to 7 out of those 10, which is pretty solid.
Dude, watch the thingamajig.
Only really losing out to other Ramp Dragon decks too, for the most part. An Aggro Sword. Aggro Sword can be a problem if you don't draw decent early, as you saw in that last game. It can be a real problem if they do go wide fast, because you have to deal with it. So this round doesn't really do too much special here. We don't really have any good ramp until we get into the later part of the round. So all I can really do is try and hold off, throw things to board that my opponent has to hit or take damage from, until we can get to those Lu Fangs, that will allow us to ramp up. We also have Burnite as well, which is actually a pretty solid card. If we go Lu Fang next turn, we can actually Burnite on the following turn, which would allow us to board wipe. We also end up with a Garu, which is kind of nice. So our hand actually went from not perfect to okay. Like, this will be enough to take out at least the 4-5. Even though we can't take out the 1-3 because we're not Nova Flow yet. So Strike is actually only doing 2 damage instead of 4 currently. And then our opponent kind of just using that cannon to whittle down things. Cannon really is a problem for Dragon to deal with early, because it's really good removal. If they do drop double cannon, you can actually really lock out Dragoncraft players quite well with it. Although you will still get pretty run over by massive threats. It just kind of lets you stabilize in the mid game. Going for more gears here. They're just looking for a way to pop this 5-4 for free, which they easily have. I mean, gear generation is huge in Portal at the moment. There's not a lot that you can't do with it. They end up going for a Sylvia though with mode draw 2. That's an okay choice, not gonna lie. I go for the Garu here because why not go for the full clear? Do have to use the barrier on the 5-4 though, which isn't exactly what I wanted to have to do here, but I think it's fine. If we get a full board clear, we can hit face, we can set up. We managed to retain our big removal card in Burnite, so we're not actually really worried about what they can do here. We're actually kind of waiting for like a Rami play or something, but they end up just throwing a couple of followers to board and passing and not actually having any impact, so we get an easy cleanup. Alright, now last match is going to be the Dragoncraft Mirror. So Dragoncraft Mirror can go one of 2 ways. It really does depend on who ramps faster typically. If you can get ahead in ramp, you can kind of take control. It also just depends on who gets lucky with their big drops and, you know, which order you play them in. So we start off with not such a great opening hand. We don't really have anything that we can really take full advantage of. But Dragon games are fast, that's something I'll say. For the most part, the early game is pretty brain dead. You just play followers to the board, try and remove threats until you can get to your mid game to late game cards where you're really ramped up. So there's not a lot you have to really think about. You're not really worried about sequence of cards like your Iron Portal or Rune or anything of the sort mostly. You're kind of just playing things to board and saying, hey, can you deal with this big threat? If not, I'm going to hit you in the face with it. So we do go for the removal there. We also get the ramp, which is great. Being able to catch back up on the ramp that we were falling behind on. Fortunately for us, they do just pass turn 5. Don't know if they just didn't have anything. Have to assume they didn't, because we just get a free Lu Fang, which allows us to ramp again, putting us actually ahead, which is really nice. They end up with a lot of low stuff in the end, which was weird, because I guess they didn't want to play it last turn, but hey, why not? We go for the Garu, go wide, because we just saw them play a bunch of small stuff that's not really threatening. Not even with the Super Wall in the Garu, because we just don't have it yet. We just dropped it to board because we had 2 of it. We're like, hey, we saw them drop something small. What are they going to do? They're going to have to invest a lot here to remove my board, so why not? Strike of Dragon Unit coming in clutch there for them, but that was a lot of resources to waste. Especially when I'm just going to follow it up with another Garu, this time with a Super Evolve. So this thing will allow me to at least attack for 4-5 into the face. Really nice. really good board presence, something with barrier. Not super easy to remove all of this now. And we have a Twilight Dragon follow-up for the next turn. So even their Garu, not really a problem. They are going to get a couple of basically free removes, but we are going to just wipe it with Twilight and hit them for 5. We can also even go for the triple draw with the Super Evolve, making a 12-12 they have to also deal with, while just taking that extra points away. Why not? Unfortunately, they just don't really seem to have much. If they had another Twilight Dragon, they could have played that, but that's kind of it. If you can't deal with the big threat, unfortunately you just get run over. So overall, this deck is extremely solid and does a really good job of getting its followers on board. Sometimes you might fall dead on ramp, but that doesn't seem to happen a lot. Considering we're only running 6 ramp cards, it's rare that I seem to really brick out ramp early on. It's decently consistent at doing what it needs to do and getting to where it needs to get. Sometimes you will just get run over though by stuff like Sword. Aggro Sword is just one of those decks where if you can't manage that early game, you are just going to get absolutely run down. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We will be having more videos in the future. We've got Control Haven that I plan on doing. We've got Aggro Sword coming up soon. So if you guys will look forward to those, and maybe I'll catch you around a stream. Till then, I'll catch you next time.